The year was dark for humanity. Colony after colony fell like sparks dying in the night. Alien fleets moved across the stars, their weapons burning everything that humans had built. No defense was strong enough. No army was large enough. Worlds once filled with life became ash and silence. The people of Earth feared that soon, their own home would share the same fate. Leaders from every nation met in secret. They argued for days, their voices sharp with anger and fear. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to build hundreds of ships and fight in every star system. But the resources of Earth were broken, the factories burned, and the colonies gone. They had the strength to build only one ship. Many asked if one ship could change anything. The answer, whispered in dark halls, was yes. One would be enough, if it was the right ship. So in the dead of night and beneath the oceans of Earth, work began. For years, hidden from the eyes of enemy spies, humans forged the greatest vessel ever built. They named it the Aegis. It was longer than a city and stronger than any fleet. Its armor was thick, its cannons vast, and deep inside it carried secrets that only a handful of commanders knew. To the people of Earth, it was more than a ship. It was hope given steel and fire. The crew was chosen with care, 500 men and women, the best that Earth could still offer, pilots who had survived impossible battles, engineers who could rebuild engines with bare hands, soldiers who never gave up. None of them were told the true mission. They only knew this. If Earth was to live, they must sail into the dark and carry humanity's final chance. On the day of launch, the skies over Earth glowed with fire as the great engines woke. Families gathered on the ground, their eyes full of both pride and sorrow. Some cried, knowing they might never see their loved ones again. Others shouted blessings, their voices carried by the wind. The Aegis rose slowly, breaking through the clouds, a silver shadow carrying the weight of billions. Inside the ship, the crew felt the tremble of departure. Some smiled with courage, others hid their fear. Captain Elias Kane stood tall on the command deck. His face was stern, carved by years of war. In his pocket lay a sealed order from Earth Command, locked with codes only he could break. He had not read it yet. He would not until the moment came. His only words to the crew were steady. "We are the shield. We are the last hope. We will not fail." As the Aegis drifted into the cold silence of space, Earth became a distant blue jewel behind them. The stars stretched ahead, endless and merciless. For the first time, the crew realized how alone they were. No fleet followed. No allies waited. Only one ship carried the banner of humanity. Days passed. Training drills filled the halls and engines hummed with power. Yet shadows of fear crept in. What if the ship was not enough? What if the aliens found them before the mission began? Whispers moved among the crew, soft but heavy. Then one night, as the ship crossed the edge of the solar system, alarms cut through the silence. Screens lit with red, sensors caught shapes in the distance. Not rocks, not stars, ships. Enemy ships. Sleek and sharp, their dark hulls reflected no light. Alien scouts had been waiting. They had seen the launch. Panic rose, but the captain's voice cut through like iron. "Battle stations." His command was clear, steady, unshaken. Guns rotated, shields flared alive, engines roared. The Aegis was not meant to run. It was built to fight. Yet even the bravest crew felt the cold truth. This was only the beginning. In the shadow of a dying star, the alien ships began to move. Their lights flickered like hungry eyes. The crew of the Aegis braced for the clash, their hearts heavy with both fear and fire. Humanity had sent only one ship. Soon the galaxy would learn why. The Aegis had left Earth far behind. Out in the endless black, the stars burned cold and silent. But the crew could feel the weight of invisible eyes. The alien scouts that had shadowed them near the dying star had vanished, yet their presence lingered like a warning. Everyone knew the enemy was watching. Everyone knew the enemy was waiting. The ship moved forward, a lonely blade cutting through the dark. Inside, life was strict and heavy. 500 souls walked its metal halls, each one burdened with the truth. They were the only defenders of their people. There would be no reinforcements, no safe harbor, no escape. The Aegis was all that humanity had left. Captain Elias Kane kept his silence most days. His face was hard, his voice calm, but deep inside his coat he carried the sealed order from Earth Command. It was locked, unread, heavy as stone. The crew often wondered about it. Some whispered during meal breaks, asking what secrets the captain held. Others stayed quiet, trusting his stern eyes but fearing the moment he would finally open the envelope. To distract from fear, drills filled the hours. Soldiers trained in the armory until their bodies ached. Pilots ran through battle simulations, steering holographic ships through deadly fields. Engineers crawled through engine chambers, listening to the heartbeat of the great ship. They were the best Earth had left, but even the best could feel small when the void around them stretched without end. In the silence of the mess hall, some crew tried to laugh. They told old stories of Earth, of green hills, oceans, and cities that still burned with light. But the laughter always faded quickly, as if swallowed by the dark steel walls. They were moving farther and farther from everything they loved, chasing a mission they did not understand. One night, a strange signal cut through the hum of the engines. It was faint at first, a single tone that echoed in the communication deck. Ensign Yara, young and sharp-eyed, caught it before anyone else. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "Captain, something is following us." The signal was not human. It was too perfect, too cold. Pulses of energy came like a heartbeat, but one that did not belong to life. The sound grew clearer every hour, and the crew realized the truth. The alien scouts had not vanished. They were hunting from the shadows, sending whispers through space. Sleep left the crew. Every corridor seemed colder, every sound sharper. In the dark of the observation deck, some thought they saw movement between the stars. Black shapes gliding without engines, waiting just out of sight. Rumors spread like fire. Were they surrounded already? Was the mission doomed before it even began? Captain Kane stood tall before his officers. His eyes were fixed on the star maps glowing across the table. "They want us afraid," he said. "They want us to turn back. But we will not. Our ship was made for more than fear." Still the signal followed. Still the crew shivered when the deck shook under sudden energy waves from the void. And then it happened. At the edge of a dead system where a star burned no brighter than a coal, the Aegis saw them. Hundreds of ships drifted in the shadow. Alien vessels, sleek, sharp, alive with strange light. They were waiting in silence, spread across the system like hunters around a trapped animal. The crew froze at the sight. Some whispered prayers. Some clenched their fists. The Aegis was one ship alone against a wall of steel and fire. The enemy did not attack at once. Instead, their ships opened in strange patterns, glowing with symbols that no human could read. It was as if they were speaking, but in a language of war. The crew waited for the captain's command. Elias Kane finally reached into his coat. The sealed order lay heavy in his hand. For days, weeks, he had carried it unopened. Now, with alien death around them, he broke the seal. His voice was calm but filled with iron as he read aloud. "Mission: do not engage. Do not return. Proceed through enemy space. Destination: their homeworld." A silence colder than space filled the deck. The crew stared at him, their faces pale. It was madness. To fly through enemy fleets and reach the very heart of their empire, it was suicide, yet Kane's eyes did not waver. Earth did not build this ship to run. They built it to finish the war. "We sail for the core of the enemy. That is our duty." Whispers erupted across the crew. Some cursed under their breath. Some gripped their weapons tighter. But slowly, one by one, they nodded. If this was their mission, then they would see it through. Not because it was safe, not because it was certain, but because Earth had trusted them and there was no one else left. Engines flared. The Aegis turned toward the sea of alien ships, its nose cutting into the darkness. The crew braced themselves as alarms began to scream. From the shadow of the dead star, the enemy moved. Hundreds of ships lit their weapons, the void filling with fire. The first clash was seconds away, and on the bridge the captain whispered to himself, too soft for the crew to hear. "One ship will be enough." The void did not stay silent for long. Alien ships moved in formation, dark wings spreading like predators in the night. They came without mercy, firing streams of light that tore through the blackness of space. The crew of the Aegis felt the first tremors run through their ship as shields flared alive. The battle had begun. On the command deck, Captain Elias Kane stood with hands behind his back, his voice calm even as the walls shook. "Weapons fire!" The order was answered by thunder. From the sides of the Aegis, rail cannons roared. Metal slugs, faster than sound, ripped across the void. Enemy ships shattered, their armor breaking like glass. Plasma beams lanced out, cutting through alien hulls in blinding arcs. Drones, no larger than fighters, swarmed from hidden bays, spreading like sparks across the enemy lines. But the aliens were many, For every ship destroyed, 10 more closed in. Their weapons hummed with strange energy, piercing the shields, shaking the steel bones of the Aegis. Alarms screamed, corridors burned, and still the enemy pressed forward. In the lower decks, soldiers rushed through smoke, sealing hull breaches with their bare hands. Sparks rained down as engineers fought to keep the engines alive. The crew moved like one body, trained for this moment, but even they could feel the weight of endless fire pressing against them. Ensign Yara's voice cracked through the comms. Enemy numbers 50 to 1. No one needed to be reminded. They could see it with their own eyes. The stars themselves seemed to vanish beneath the flood of alien ships. Kane's voice stayed steady, iron against the storm. We hold. We show them what one ship can do. The battle raged. The Aegis twisted through the chaos, its engines burning brighter than suns. Every weapon spoke, tearing lines of fire across the enemy fleet. Yet each strike was answered with fury. Alien missiles crashed against the shields. Strange beams cut deep into the armor, leaving glowing scars across the hull. In the medbay, wounded filled the bunks, blood mixed with the sound of engines groaning under strain. And still no one spoke of retreat. No one spoke of surrender. The crew of the Aegis knew the truth. If they failed here, Earth would fall. Hours passed like minutes. The crew grew tired, their hands shaking, their eyes burning. Yet the ship fought on, bleeding but unbroken. Then in the heart of the chaos, the captain reached for the sealed orders once more. He had read the mission, but now he searched for something more. Hidden beneath the words was a second line of code, revealed only to him. His eyes darkened as he read. The mission was not just survival. It was not just to reach the alien homeworld. It was to carry a weapon, one so powerful that Earth had hidden its very existence. Deep within the core of the Aegis was a chamber sealed behind layers of steel and firewalls. Inside lay humanity's last gamble. Kane closed the message and spoke only 3 words. Engage secret protocols. The chief engineer's eyes widened, but obeyed. In the lower decks, hidden panels opened. Systems older than the ship itself stirred awake. Lights burned red, and the hum of power filled the walls like a heartbeat. The crew did not yet know the full truth, but they felt the change. The ship itself seemed alive, its fire growing hotter, its strikes sharper. The aliens noticed too. Their formations shifted, their attacks more desperate. It was as if they understood what the humans carried, and fear pushed them forward. On the bridge, Yara shouted, "Shields down to 40%. Engines overheating." "Hold the line," Kane said. "Push through." The Aegis drove forward, punching a hole in the enemy wall. Alien wrecks burned in its wake, but the ship bled smoke and sparks. Every corridor shook. Every soul felt the weight of destruction closing in. And then silence. For a moment, the enemy fell back. The void cleared, showing the wreckage of hundreds of alien ships drifting lifeless in space. The crew gasped, some with relief, others with fear. They knew it was not victory. It was only a pause. Kane looked over the ruined stars, his face hard as stone. He knew what awaited them deeper in enemy space. This was only the first clash, a test of strength. The true war had not yet begun. He turned to his officers, his voice carrying through the deck. Our mission stands. We will not stop here. We go to their heart. We go to their world. And we will finish this war. The crew, broken and bloody, raised their voices in answer, not in cheers but in fierce resolve. They were 500 against an empire, but they would not turn back. The Aegis pushed forward, engines burning through wreckage and silence. Behind them lay the ashes of the first battle. Ahead lay the fire of many more. And somewhere in the depths of the ship, the hidden weapon pulsed, waiting for the day it would be unleashed. Deep in the heart of the Aegis, behind doors sealed by codes and steel, a secret chamber began to glow. Most of the crew had never even heard of it. To them, the ship was already the most powerful warship ever made. Rail cannons, plasma shields, swarms of drones. But what lay hidden at its core was beyond weapons, beyond reason. It was Earth's last gamble. The battle with the alien swarm had left the ship scarred. Hull plates glowed with heat. Entire corridors were sealed off by fire. Dozens lay in the medbay, clinging to life. Yet the Aegis kept moving forward, pushing deeper into enemy space. Repairs were made on the run, sparks flying, steel ringing with hammers. Every soul on board knew they had survived only the first storm. More were coming. Captain Elias Kane walked the silent corridor that led to the chamber. Beside him, Chief Engineer Lyra Voss carried a tablet locked with codes she had sworn never to speak aloud. Both of them knew the truth, and both carried its weight in silence. When the heavy doors opened, a pale light spilled out. Inside stood a machine unlike any other. A sphere of black metal floated in midair, wrapped in rings of silver that turned slowly with no sound. Energy pulsed between them like captured lightning. It was not a cannon. It was not a bomb. It was something older, something stranger, technology born from human minds, but whispered to be influenced by alien ruins found on distant worlds. The crew who saw it for the first time called it many things. The heart, the end, the monster. But the official name was hidden in files no one dared read. Only Kane and Voss understood its true purpose. It is not meant to destroy fleets, Voss said quietly, her eyes fixed on the sphere. It is meant to destroy worlds, Kane's voice was cold, and we are meant to carry it to theirs. Outside the chamber, the crew began to sense the truth. Rumors spread like fire. The sealed orders, the hidden systems, the strange new power humming through the walls. Whispers filled the mess hall. Was the Aegis carrying a weapon that could end an entire planet? Some said yes, and they clenched their fists with grim pride. Others said yes, and their faces went pale. On the observation deck, young Ensign Yara stared at the alien stars. She spoke softly to a fellow officer, fear in her eyes. If we use that weapon, are we still human? Her words were carried across the ship. A divide began to grow. Some believed the weapon was salvation. Others feared it was doom. The tension grew sharper when scouts detected more alien fleets ahead. Not small patrols this time, armadas. Dozens of massive carriers, each the size of cities, moved through the void, waiting to crush the lone ship. The officers gathered around the captain. We cannot face them all, one said. Even the Aegis cannot fight forever. That, Kane replied, his voice low, is why Earth gave us this weapon. Silence followed his words. Some nodded, their faces hard. Others looked away, shame burning in their eyes. Chief Engineer Voss explained what little she dared. The weapon could collapse the energy of a star, or shatter the crust of a world. But it was unstable. If used too early, it might destroy not just the target, but the Aegis itself. It was a blade with no handle, one that cut friend and foe alike. The crew listened in silence, fear thick in their throats. They had sworn to fight for Earth to protect humanity, but this was different. This was not protection. This was annihilation. And yet what choice did they have? In the lower decks, arguments erupted. Soldiers shouted at engineers. Officers clashed in whispers. Some demanded the weapon be used now, to scatter the armadas before they drew closer. Others swore it must never be fired, that to use it would make them no different than the monsters they fought. Kane stood alone in his quarters, staring at the sealed map of their course. Ahead lay the alien homeworld, a jewel of fire and metal. Billions lived there. Billions who had sent fleets to burn human colonies, to crush Earth beneath their shadow. His hand tightened as he thought of the worlds already lost, Ardent Prime, Nova Ceres, the lunar cities. He remembered the screams of the refugees, the ash falling from broken skies. One ship, one chance, one weapon. The decision would fall to him. When the alien fleets finally appeared, stretching across the void like an iron wall, the Aegis slowed. Engines throbbed, shields sparked, weapons warmed. The crew stood ready, their hearts divided but their duty unshaken. On the bridge, Kane's eyes were steady. Prepare the heart, he ordered. Gasps spread across the deck. The crew obeyed, though fear hung heavy in the air. Deep inside the ship, the black sphere began to glow brighter. The silver rings turned faster, energy crackling like thunder. The walls of the Aegis shook with its power. Some prayed. Some clenched their teeth. Some cursed their fate. And then, as the alien armada closed in, a new sound tore through the ship. Not the hum of the weapon, but alarms from the core. Systems flashed red. The weapon's power was unstable. Chief Engineer Voss shouted over the comms. If we fire now, we may not survive. The crew froze. The choice was before them. To unleash the weapon and risk their lives, or to fight without it and risk Earth itself. Captain Kane stood in silence, his face caught between duty and doubt. Around him the bridge waited, the crew trembling, the alien armada closing in. And deep in the chamber the weapon pulsed, hungry, waiting for the moment it would finally be set free. Smoke drifted through the corridors of the Aegis. The crew had seen the weapon in its chamber, felt its hum shake the walls, heard its pulse echo like a beating heart. They no longer whispered about it, now they argued openly. Some called it salvation, others called it murder. Captain Elias Kane gave the order to prepare the weapon, but it had not fired. The engineers had reported unstable power, warning that the ship itself could tear apart if the weapon was unleashed too soon. That pause, that hesitation, opened a crack inside the crew, and in that crack, doubt began to grow into rebellion. In the mess hall, voices clashed louder than the storm outside. Sergeant Core, a scarred veteran, slammed his fist on the table. "We are 500 souls on one ship. Do you want to throw us into a fire we cannot survive? This weapon is madness. We should turn back, regroup, protect Earth, not burn ourselves on the enemy's homeworld." Others shouted back at him. Lieutenant Marin, her eyes fierce, stood tall. "Turn back to what? Earth cannot build another Aegis. We are it. If we fail, humanity dies. Better we risk ourselves than watch our people burn." The room split down the middle, voices rising like thunder. Fear and anger fed the flames. Lines were drawn, not by rank, not by duty, but by belief. Captain Kane saw it in their eyes when he entered the hall. The silence that followed was heavier than the shouting had been. His voice was calm but sharp. "We were chosen because we are willing to do what others could not. Earth did not send us to survive. They sent us to finish the war." But even his words could not heal the fracture. That night in the lower decks, Sergeant Core gathered those who shared his fear. A dozen, then 2 dozen, then more. Engineers, soldiers, even officers joined him. They whispered plans in the shadows. They would not let the captain sacrifice them for a weapon they did not trust. They would take control of the ship, disable the core, and turn the Aegis back toward Earth. They called themselves the Protectors, but to the loyal crew they were something else, traitors. The mutiny struck without warning. Explosions rocked the engineering deck as power conduits were cut. Lights died across half the ship, plunging corridors into darkness. Security alarms howled. Doors sealed shut. In the chaos, the Protectors stormed the chamber where the weapon pulsed, cutting through guards who tried to hold them back. On the bridge, alarms flared. Breach in lower decks. "Reactor offline." Kane's jaw tightened. He had feared this moment but prayed it would never come. Now, with enemy fleets closing in from the void, his own crew had turned against him. "Seal all access to the weapon," he ordered. But it was too late. Reports came in over comms. Guards down, systems failing, traitors gaining ground. The ship shook again, not from mutiny this time, but from outside fire. The alien armada had arrived. Hundreds of ships surrounded the Aegis, their weapons flaring. The shields held, but every strike weakened them, caught between fire from without and betrayal within. The crew of the Aegis fought in 2 wars at once. In the corridors, loyal soldiers clashed with the Protectors. Gunfire echoed through the steel halls. Sparks lit the darkness. Friends turned against friends. The ship that was supposed to carry humanity's hope became a battlefield of its own. Ensign Yara, torn between fear and duty, found herself face to face with a fellow officer who raised a weapon against her. "We cannot win," he shouted. "Don't you see? This ship is doomed." She answered with a shot that left him silent on the floor. Her hands shook, her heart broke, but she kept moving. Meanwhile, in the chamber of the weapon, Sergeant Core and his rebels reached the core. Chief Engineer Voss stood in their way, her face pale but her eyes blazing. "You disable this weapon," she told them, "and you doom Earth." "No," Core snarled. "We save it from your madness." The fight there was brutal. Sparks flew as plasma bolts tore through the chamber. Voss was thrown against a console, blood on her lips, but with her last strength she triggered a lockdown. The weapons chamber sealed, trapping both loyalists and traitors inside. On the bridge, Kane's voice roared over the comms. "This ship was built for one purpose. If you destroy that purpose, then every death we've suffered was for nothing. Stand down!" But the Protectors did not listen. In desperation, they struck at the weapon's power core. Systems flared. Lights exploded. The ship trembled as if it were screaming. Then, silence. Across the bridge, across the decks, the crew stared in horror as warning signs lit every screen. The weapon's core had been disabled. "The heart is dead," Voss whispered through blood-stained lips. At that same moment, enemy ships opened fire with renewed fury. The shields cracked. Explosions tore across the outer hull. The Aegis groaned under the storm. Panic rippled through the loyal crew. Without the weapon, without the core, what chance did they have against an empire? Captain Kane stood frozen for only a breath. Then his voice cut through the chaos. "We are not finished. They think they have broken us. They think one ship cannot endure. We will prove them wrong." But even as his words burned with iron, his eyes carried the weight of despair. He knew what the crew did not. The path to the enemy's homeworld was now blocked not only by fleets, but by betrayal within. And in the sealed chamber below, where loyal and traitor bodies lay side by side, the great weapon pulsed faintly, like a dying heart, as if waiting for one last chance to awaken. The void outside burned with fire. Alien carriers surrounded the Aegis, their cannons blazing like a storm of suns. Explosions shook the ship with every strike, sparks bursting through shattered corridors. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and fear. The heart, the secret weapon, had been crippled in the mutiny. Now all that remained between humanity and extinction was a wounded ship, a divided crew, and a captain who refused to surrender. Captain Elias Kane stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes locked on the wall of enemy ships. His voice was steady, cutting through the chaos. "Helm full burn, straight through them." The officer at the controls hesitated. "Sir, that's suicide." Kane's jaw tightened. "So is waiting." "Push us forward," engines roared. The Aegis surged ahead like a wounded beast, its armor scorched, its shields flickering. Alien fleets closed in from every side, 1,000 weapons trained on a single target. But the ship did not falter. It drove straight into the storm. Rail cannons fired, tearing through alien hulls. Plasma beams cut arcs of fire, carving open carriers that bled light into the darkness. Drones poured from launch bays, swarming like angry hornets, sacrificing themselves to tear holes in enemy wings. Every strike from the Aegis left wreckage behind, but every second brought fresh fire against its steel bones. In the lower decks, engineers fought to keep the engines alive. Heat blistered the walls, sparks rained like fire. Chief Engineer Lyra Voss, still bleeding from the mutiny, barked orders through clenched teeth. "Keep the cores stable. If they overload, we're dead before we reach the line." Men and women worked until their hands bled, sealing ruptures with scrap, wiring circuits with bare fingers. They knew the ship was burning alive, but still they held it together, bolt by bolt, breath by breath. Above, soldiers fought in ruined corridors. The mutiny had left scars. Whole sections of the crew no longer trusted one another. Some rebels still hid in the shadows, striking at loyalists when they could. Gunfire echoed through steel halls even as alien cannons tore at the hull outside. Humanity's last ship was at war with itself as much as with the enemy. But the bridge did not falter. Kane's voice was iron. "Weapons, concentrate fire on their carriers. Helm, thread us through the center. We'll break them or burn trying." The Aegis dove headfirst into the thickest cluster of ships. Alien vessels unleashed their fury, filling the void with fire. The ship shook so hard the crew thought the hull might split. Whole decks went dark. Gravity flickered. Screams filled the comms. Then the cannons roared again. A carrier erupted into flame, its wreckage spinning into the path of its allies. The Aegis plowed through the fire, shields collapsing, armor splitting, but engines still alive. The crew shouted in defiance, their fear burned away by the fury of survival. Ensign Yara clutched her station, her hands trembling as numbers bled across her screen. "Shields down to 15%. Hull breaches on decks 8, 9, and 11. We can't take much more." Kane's eyes did not waver. "Then we'll take more. Drive us forward." The ship twisted and turned, weaving between firestorms, its cannons blazing until the barrels glowed white. Drones sacrificed themselves in swarms, tearing apart engines, crashing into enemy hulls. Each second gained was paid in blood and steel, but the enemy was endless. For every ship destroyed, a dozen more filled the void. The Aegis was breaking, its insides torn with flame. Kane knew it. The crew knew it. Yet no one slowed. On the engineering deck, Voss made a desperate choice. With the heart disabled, she rerouted its dormant energy into the engines. Power surged, almost tearing the ship apart, but the drive screamed to life with new fury. The Aegis leapt forward faster than ever, ramming straight through the enemy line. The impact tore ships in half. Metal ripped, fire blossomed, and the void lit with wreckage. The Aegis staggered but did not fall. For one breath, the alien wall broke. On the bridge, Kane seized the moment. Full speed. Through the gap, now. The engine screamed, tearing at the ship's bones. The Aegis burst through the hole, dragging smoke and fire behind it, leaving broken carriers in its wake. The crew gasped, some in shock, some in triumph. They had made it through, but the cost was heavy. Hundreds of drones gone, dozens dead in the lower decks. Entire sections sealed off, burning or gone to vacuum. The heart still crippled, the mutiny unresolved, and still the enemy followed. Sensors lit with warnings as fleets adjusted course, moving to block the path once more. Ahead, beyond the dust of wreckage, lay the alien home system, their capital world glowing like a jewel of fire. Kane stared at it in silence, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on his shoulders. His crew was broken, his weapon disabled, his ship bleeding, yet still they pushed forward. His voice cut through the smoke and static, steady as steel. They thought one ship could not reach their world. We'll show them what one ship can do. The crew, weary and scarred, raised their voices in answer. Not cheers, not laughter, but raw defiance. They had fought through fire. They would fight again. The Aegis burned on deeper into enemy space, carrying with it the last hope of Earth. And in the sealed chamber where the heart lay dormant, the black sphere pulsed once, faint but steady, as if waiting for its moment to awaken again. The alien homeworld came into view like a burning jewel against the black sea of space. It was vast, covered in glowing cities that stretched across continents and ringed by fleets so massive they looked like chains around a prisoner. The planet was alive with light and power, a throne for an empire that had crushed countless worlds, and now a single broken ship stood before it. The Aegis limped forward, its engines screaming, smoke pouring from fractured hulls. Great wounds scarred its steel body, decks sealed with bulkheads where entire sections had been lost. Inside, the crew worked with bloodied hands, patching holes with scraps, feeding every drop of power into engines and shields. No one spoke of retreat anymore. There was nowhere to go but forward. On the bridge, Captain Elias Kane watched the enemy fleets form into walls. His voice was quiet but sharp. This is it. The core of their empire. We hold nothing back. Ensign Yara's eyes widened at the readings on her console. Sir, they outnumber us 10,000 to 1. Then we fight 10,000 to 1, Kane replied. His eyes never left the planet ahead. The alien capital fleet moved in silence, massive warships blotting out the stars. They did not rush to attack. They were patient, as if confident this one human vessel would collapse on its own. Perhaps they wanted to see desperation. Perhaps they wanted to make Earth's last hope suffer before it died. But Kane had no patience left. Weapons fire. The cannons of the Aegis roared once more, spitting death into the void. Plasma beams slashed across alien cruisers. Drones poured out like sparks. Rail slugs tore through armor. The ship fought with every weapon it had left, every scrap of fury that still burned in its wounded heart. The alien fleets answered with firestorms. Explosions shook the Aegis like thunder. Shields cracked, armor peeled, decks tore apart. Men and women screamed as flames ripped through corridors. Still the ship moved forward. Still the crew fought. In engineering, Chief Lyra Voss lay on a stretcher, her body broken from the mutiny and the battle, but her mind still sharp. Her voice rasped through comms. Captain, the heart can be restored, but it will cost everything. Kane's hand tightened on the command chair. Explain. The rebels damaged the power core. To restart it, we must feed the main reactor directly into the heart. It will drain us dry. The ship will not survive it. A silence fell over the bridge. Every crew member heard her words. To fire the weapon was to die, but to hold back was to lose. The captain closed his eyes for one breath. When they opened again, they were hard as stone. Do it. Voss coughed blood but smiled faintly. Aye, Captain. In the chamber, engineers tore open conduits, their hands burned by raw energy. The black sphere pulsed weakly, the silver rings turning slow. Cables hissed as power flowed, the lights of the ship dimming. One by one, systems went dark, shields, weapons, even life support. The Aegis poured everything it had into the heart. The alien fleet saw it. They surged forward, firing every weapon at once, desperate to crush the human ship before the weapon could awaken. On the bridge, Yara shouted, Captain, our shields are gone. Kane stood tall, his voice like iron. Then we are the shield. Hold the line. The crew fired what weapons still remained. Drones rammed enemy ships, detonating in blinding bursts. Cannons spat their last shells. Plasma beams cut through the void until the cores overheated and died. One by one, defenses fell silent. Alien fire tore into the hull. Decks vented to space. Hundreds of crew fell. The Aegis screamed, its body torn, its soul burning. And still the heart drank the last of its life. Then, with a sound like thunder inside the bones of every soul, the weapon awakened. The black sphere flared with light. The silver rings spun faster and faster until they were a blur. Energy arcs burst across the chamber, shaking the ship like an earthquake. Every screen on the bridge lit with warnings. The heart was alive again. Kane's voice was steady, calm against the storm. "Target, their world." The crew stared at him in silence, knowing this was the end. Some bowed their heads in prayer. Others gripped their stations with white knuckles. All of them knew they would not live to see Earth again. The alien fleet closed in, their weapons aimed, ready to finish the crippled ship. But the Aegis did not run. It turned its broken body toward the planet itself. Alarms screamed. Flames spread. The walls shook as if the ship itself was crying out. Yet through it all, Kane's voice never wavered. Fire. The heart unleashed its fury. A beam of energy brighter than any sun tore from the ship, cutting across the void. The alien fleet tried to block it, but their ships shattered like glass in its path. The beam struck the planet and the world screamed. Continents cracked. Oceans boiled. Cities turned to dust in a single breath. The homeworld of the alien empire burned, its heart torn apart by the weapon carried in one human ship. On the bridge, the crew felt the shockwave tear through them. Consoles exploded. The ceiling collapsed. The Aegis shook itself to pieces. And still, Kane stood tall, watching the fire consume the enemy's world. His last words were steady, carried across the comms to Earth. One ship was enough. The light swallowed them. But in the silence after, across the stars, the message had already been sent. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it could do with a single vessel, a single crew, a single desperate hope. And far beyond the burning ruins of the alien empire, in the shadows of another distant system, unseen eyes watched the signal and listened. The silence after the fire was heavy, as if the stars themselves held their breath. Where once an empire's world glowed bright with cities and fleets, there was now only ruin. Oceans boiled into clouds of steam. Continents broke apart like shattered glass. The alien homeworld, proud and mighty, had become a tomb lit by the ashes of its own greatness. And in the middle of that silence, the broken voice of Captain Elias Kane reached across the void. His final words, carried on the last breath of the Aegis, spread through every channel, every relay, every hidden satellite left alive in human space. One ship was enough. On Earth, the words were received first in command halls hidden deep under mountains. The leaders who had once doubted, who had whispered about surrender, stood frozen. Some wept openly. Others stood in silence, their heads bowed as if in prayer. But when the word spread beyond them, when they reached the survivors in ruined cities and the refugees scattered across broken colonies, the effect was like fire in dry grass. People rose from the shadows, shouting in the streets, beating their fists against the sky. The Aegis! The Aegis! Families who had hidden in fear for years walked outside and lifted their children high. Soldiers battered and scarred by endless retreats straightened their backs. Humanity was no longer only a victim. It had struck back. And it had done so with one ship. Yet victory carried weight. The Aegis was gone. Her 500 were gone. They would never see Earth again. For days, their names were read aloud on broadcasts, each one followed by silence. No body would return home, no coffin lowered into soil. Only memory. But those names, once whispered in grief, began to be shouted in pride. Schools carved them into walls. Survivors painted them on ruins. The crew of the Aegis became legends before the ashes of their ship had cooled. But far from Earth, in the dark corners of the galaxy, others listened too. Traders carried the message to ports where alien tongues twisted the words into fearful whispers. Smugglers carved it into hulls. One ship was enough. Slaves in distant mines repeated it like a secret prayer, daring to believe that empires could bleed. Insects with jeweled eyes clicked in unease as they replayed the human transmission. If this is their beginning, one said, what will their end look like? On worlds lit by twin suns, reptilian lords hissed in fear. Humanity must not rise further. If one ship could break an empire, what could 10 do? And in even darker places, ancient fleets stirred. Their ships were vast and silent, their designs older than memory. They had not noticed humanity before, not when it was small, not when it was weak. But now, with one blow, humanity had demanded their attention. Cold eyes turned toward Earth. Back home, Earth's leaders did not celebrate long. They understood what Kane's words truly meant. One ship was enough for this war, but it would not be enough for what came next. Already, rival species would be preparing, watching, fearing, planning. Humanity had not ended the danger. It had announced itself to the galaxy. Shipyards, long silent, roared back to life. Rusted factories were lit again, their furnaces burning bright. Engineers drew new designs inspired by the sacrifice of the Aegis. None could ever replace her, but all would carry her spirit. Soldiers drilled with new purpose, whispering the last words of Kane like an oath before every exercise. In homes rebuilt from rubble, children played at being crew members, shouting across ruined streets, "Fire the heart! Fire the cannons!" They did not know war's full horror yet, but they carried its story in their voices. Humanity's next generation would grow up beneath the shadow of the Aegis. But not all shadows were safe. Among the wreckage of the alien homeworld, debris drifted slowly across the void. Shattered cities glowed faintly beneath choking clouds, and deep inside one of the largest fragments, sealed beneath tons of steel and stone, a chamber still pulsed with faint light. The heart had not died completely. Its black sphere flickered like a dying star, weak but alive. If salvagers found it, if another empire claimed it, the weapon that had saved Earth could burn humanity instead. For now, Earth did not know. For now, they believed the weapon was gone with the ship. They believed their heroes had carried it to their graves. But somewhere in the darkness, the galaxy shifted. Allies might rise, enemies surely would, and over it all the legend grew. The Aegis, the ship that was more than a vessel, more than steel, the crew who fought against impossible odds, the captain who gave his last breath to remind the galaxy what humanity could be. One ship was enough. It was a victory. It was a warning. It was a beginning, and in the quiet, as Earth celebrated and the stars listened, unseen watchers stirred in distant systems, whispering to themselves. Humanity had announced its place among the stars. The story of mankind was no longer one of survival. It was a story of power, of defiance, of fire, and it had only just begun.